you doing? I'm Wade Harrington, the editor of Deception. Tell you a little bit about how I came to be the editor of Deception. Out in my backyard one day I got a phone call from, I call her the crazy lady, Leonlix, and she says, "Hi Wade, I've heard a lot about your company and I'd like to get you to edit our movie." So I was like, alright, well, we can probably do that for you. I said, "When did you need that?" And she said, her first response was 2 weeks. And I was like, what? 2 weeks? Are you crazy? And that's where my nickname for her came from, is the crazy lady, because she wanted me to do the editing in 2 weeks. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me, because you know it takes months and months to edit movies. Sometimes they take a year to edit a movie. King Kong took 7 months and they had all kinds of people working on that. But anyway, back to the story about how she finally gave in and gave me 2 months to do it, and me and James worked our butts off trying to get it done in those 2 months, and we just now finished like 3 days before the premiere. So that's how all this came to be, and that's how Leonlix has her new nickname, is the crazy lady. If an editor does his job right, the audience won't notice the editing at all, because it's supposed to be seamless without seeing what's going on. You got to know when to cut, when not to cut, you know, which take to put in there, which take not to, the bad acting, the good acting, you got to take with a lot of boom noise in it. You got to throw it out because you can't fix that. Sometimes there's bugs all around and crickets and stuff like that. That sometimes give you a nightmare. Airplanes and cars going by, saw a lot of that in Deception. Fixed a lot of it. Some of it's still there, so if you really listen you can hear maybe a dog barking or something like that in the background, but I do believe they had dogs back in the 1850s, so I think we're okay there. Leonlix brought me a big box of tapes, about this big, and it was filled with 23 tapes. Each tape had about an hour's worth of footage on it, and she handed me the box and said, "Here's the movie." And I was like, oh goody. It's a line from Deception anyway. So the first task is take the tapes and get them into the computer so we can start chopping and editing or whatever. Well, the particular camera this movie was recorded in is a JVC, and it's got its own HDV codec, which is kind of new, and there's bugs in it and everything. And their camcorders will only play back on their camcorder or their own decks, and there was a nightmare going on before I even got involved with it, and I picked it up and did a lot of research before I even got the box of tapes. And make a long story short, we got the deck, got it working, and we started in there. We signed a contract and got the whole deal working, and 23 tapes. Each tape took more than an hour because some of them had to be captured a couple times with the little glitches we have with the computer, but it took about 35 hours in all just to dump the footage into the computer before we could even start working on it. There was 1,238 different clips involved with Deception. Some of them had multi-takes on those, so it was way up in the 2,000-3,000s probably for different scenes, different takes and all that. We had to crunch it down to, I think the final total was about 530 some different pieces of Deception that made the 2-hour movie. The original cut we did was 2 hours and 37 minutes, so we had to figure out which parts to cut out and which parts to leave in there. James Johnson is great when it comes to watching movies. He's been doing it for years, and I got him to help me because it's just kind of an overwhelming task to edit a whole movie in just 2 months. And so James and me worked side by side for most of it, 90% of it. We'd sit there day after day after day watching the footage, picking the shots, deciding which ones to throw out, which ones to use. Some of the stuff is just like, how are we going to make this work? We had to go back and really rack our brains to make sure the cuts look real, so you can't tell that it's been edited. Like I said, if an editor does their job good, it should be smooth and seamless the whole process, and it shouldn't be any glitches in there. So some of the stuff we had to get really creative on, and some stuff we just plain old had to cut out because it just wouldn't work. And me and the crazy lady butted heads a little bit, and we came up to a good happy medium on what to cut out, what to leave in. I was real happy with what we left in and what we cut out, and I think she was pretty happy too. And some of the stuff just drug the story along, and that's something you don't want to do, that dragging a movie along. But we pretty much, I think we got it right. I think the final cut is pretty good. It's about 2 hours. The original, all the footage total was 2 hours and 37 minutes, so we cut about 37 minutes of unnecessary footage. It was good stuff, but it was just, you know, it didn't keep the story moving along and get people to, you know, get a little bit bored with it. So we wanted to keep the story interesting and keep it flowing, so we cut it down to about 2 hours. Once the final cut was made down to the 2 hours, we had to go back and color correct every clip. Every one of those 523 clips had to be color corrected to match. So each mood or each setting or the colors, the brightness, whatever, the contrast had to be all the same so it flowed. So when you go from one scene to the next, you don't get a huge difference in color. And sometimes that was hard to do because the first good take was shot in the morning, and then a couple hours later the sun had moved and the colors change as the sun goes up or down, so you have to get those colors right, and it was kind of tricky. So James and I had a good time trying to color correct those, and I think we did a pretty good job on that. Also, each clip has the matching audio that goes with it. 500 and some clips of audio we had to go in and adjust in the program we use called SoundForge, and take a lot of the static out. Sometimes the air conditioner was on in a shot, sometimes it was off. You had to go in with a noise reduction plug-in and try to get that static to go out of there, but you can't take too much out because then it'll distort the voices. So it's critical to get good audio in a movie, and they did a fairly good job in Deception. So far as audio goes, it could have been better, but I think we got it pretty believable. And that's the whole thing: is you want to focus in the movie and bring yourself out of reality into the movie, and it's got to be believable. The music for the scenes that we used in the movie, James and I went through tons and tons of music to try to pick the right type of music for the right scene, and some of them I think we nailed pretty good on. In fact, one scene where Edgar gets his nads grabbed, we had a good song there that fit pretty good, and it flowed right on in to the rest of the scenes, and we were just very happy with the way that music flowed. We kind of high-fived each other and said, "Oh man, that's pretty good." So a lot of them we had trouble with because we only had so many songs to choose from, because we don't have a huge budget like Hollywood. They'll go out and hire an orchestra and get them to play to the movie. We have to get our music to match the movie, and that's a lot trickier when you have a low budget type of movie. So we had fun picking the music, and I think out of all the music we picked, there was only one or two songs that we had to get. The crazy lady didn't like them, so we had to change them. So I think she's pretty happy with the overall product. We used we had a lot of punching in the movie because there was a lot of fights that broke out. The first rough draft we used they were like the old-fashioned type, and they really sounded like Batman punches and stuff like that. So it just didn't sound real. So we went back and tried to find some realer sounding punches, and we threw those in there, and they really brought the fight scene up a notch. And there was some other, knife stabs. Those are kind of tricky. It's kind of like, sounds like a potato chip bag or something when you get stabbed. Some other things were some door closing. I think we added some footsteps for the horses and stuff like that. One of the trickiest part of editing was taking out some of the things that were not supposed to be there. Like in one scene we saw a Buick. I don't think they had Buick back in the 1800s or 1700s. And another time we saw a couple of light switches here and there that we had to get those to go away. There was some, like we already talked about, the airplanes and the cars and stuff going by, but there was somebody's foot was in one scene. There was a tripod in another scene. That mirror in the parlor scene was kind of tricky because every time we'd look in the mirror we'd see somebody, like when it was the actors not their turn to act, they'd be over there slouching on the couch like this, and you could see them in the mirror, and then when we showed them on the scene they're like this doing their lines, but then you go back and they're slouching on the couch. That was kind of funny. And One of them was drinking a water bottle, so you could see him doing this in the mirror with the water bottle, so we had to kind of figure out how to get that out of there, but we got that out of there. There was some things where the boom was in the way. Boom. One of the scenes, Sarah opens the door up real quick when Edgar's chasing her. He opens the door up and you can see a light stand out of the door, so we had to crop that image and get rid of that so you couldn't see it. So there was a lot of things we had to try to keep on the lookout for, so far as keeping all the modern day things out of the pictures. Like there's a couple in there that we left just so y'all can try to find them and let us know about them. So anyway, if anybody finds anybody, let me know. That's about it when it comes to how we crop the images to hide certain things. There's one scene in particular that was kind of tricky. It was Sarah was looking out the window when James was leaving on the carriage, and she's looking out the window. There's a still shot on her, and she's looking out the window, and there's a big line across the window. It's a storm window, so that was a little bit tricky to get that out of there, but I worked on that for probably 2 hours just to get the little storm window thing out of there so it wouldn't bring you out of the moment or bring you out of the time period.